Have you ever wondered how a muscle contracts? It's not as simple as you might think. In fact, there's a remarkable sequence of precise steps that must take place for your muscles to work. To understand it, we'll need to zoom into the microscopic level and explore what's really going on. All right, let's dive into the 7 steps of muscle contraction. Let's start by peeling back the layers of a muscle. Also, shout out to Muscle in Motion for the graphics for this video, and keep an eye out for an exciting collaboration project that we're releasing soon. Okay, so when we look at an entire muscle belly, we can actually see that it's made up of smaller parts. Specifically, there are groups of muscles that are called muscle fascicles. Now, each of these muscle fascicles has one nerve controlling it. So we have one nerve going to a group of muscle fibers called a fascicle, and collectively that nerve and group of fibers is called a motor unit. And fun fact, some of those motor units are slow twitch and others are fast twitch based on the characteristics of that muscle. And each person and each muscle has a different distribution of slow twitch versus fast twitch motor units. And now let's zoom in even further, because that motor unit may contain up to hundreds or even thousands of muscle fibers. So if we zoom in, we can look at one individual muscle fiber. But to understand what's going on, we have to go even deeper than that and zoom all the way into a myofibril. One muscle fiber is made up of thousands of myofibrils, and each of those myofibrils are made up of thousands of what we call sarcomeres. And that's what we're looking at now. And we're gonna really need to look all the way down to this level to really understand what's going on with contracting a muscle. All right, but now that we understand some of the physiology and what we're looking at, let's go to the 7 steps of a muscle contraction. Starting with step number 1, send a signal from the brain to the muscle. The brain sends an electrical signal through the nervous system to the muscle through what's called a motor neuron. Specifically, the motor cortex of the brain sends that signal through the spinal cord and then out through this motor neuron to the individual muscle. That signal is sent through what's called an action potential. And we're kind of representing that action potential with this little charge that's moving through the nerve. In reality, those charges are coming all the time. And we can't really send big charges or small charges. All charges are exactly the same. But what we can do if we want to contract a muscle more strongly is send signals faster. And that's what's called rate coding. The rate at which we're coding or we're sending these action potentials. So to recap, step 1, we're sending that signal from the brain to the muscle. Now let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is arrival of that signal to the muscle, specifically to what we call the neuromuscular junction. The electrical signal reaches the neuromuscular junction where the nerve meets the muscle. This causes the release of a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is helping get that signal across the neuromuscular junction, going from the nerve to the muscle. And can we just think about how crazy that is for a second? That our body is able to have these completely different tissues. We're able to create a nerve signal and then through a chemical messenger, acetylcholine, translate that across this neuromuscular junction to a completely different tissue, the muscle tissue. I just think it's interesting. And then the fun exercise science part of this is that when we say athletes are getting neuromuscular adaptations, when they're getting stronger, one of those adaptations is actually getting more acetylcholine, getting more of these messengers. When we train this and we activate our muscles, we upregulate these chemical messengers, we build more of them so that we can send these signals more efficiently to the muscles. So to summarize, step 2 was getting that action potential across the neuromuscular junction. Step 3, the electrical signal spreads into the muscle. Acetylcholine binds to receptors in the muscle cell, creating an electrical impulse that spreads across the muscle cell membrane. So here's what that kind of looks like. The muscle cell has a specific architecture, a specific design, which includes these things called T-tubules. This design is intentional because whenever a signal gets there and it spreads out all across these T-tubules, it gets that signal all over the place. So that signal is sent out all across the membrane, down the T-tubules, and that is important for the next step. And that is step 4, the release of calcium. That electrical impulse that spread all around the membrane triggers the release of calcium from a storage area. So calcium was being stored in one specific area, and then when it got that signal, it got released. And that calcium wasn't being stored at the calcium bank. That would be a little too easy. It's being stored in what's called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. It's a storage unit in the muscle where calcium is stored. But again, whenever it got that electrical signal, it opened up and it released that calcium out into the muscle cell. So we're gonna throw a little fun fact into step 4 here. In slow twitch muscles, that calcium just kind of slowly works its way back. But in fast twitch muscles, they need to boom, 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 activate, activate. They need to be fast twitch. So there's actually calcium sequestering proteins that go out and get the calcium and bring it back into the calcium bank, the sarcoplasmic reticulum. So that way it can be released again quickly and create muscle contractions more quickly. All right, now let's move on to step number 5. And that is that calcium is now going to go bind to what is called troponin. So let's break down what we're looking at here. What you can see here at this deep level, so remember we're at the level of the sarcomere, we're seeing all the way in at the very microscopic level to what, not a muscle fiber, not a myofibril, but within that myofibril, what a muscle looks like at the smallest level. And we're seeing a few different things. We're seeing the myosin, which is a muscle protein. We're seeing the actin, which is a muscle protein. The actin is what we call the thin filament, and the myosin is the thick filament because it's thicker. Now, if we look at the actin, the thin filament, what you can see on there is that there's those dots. And if we look at the actin, we can see two things on that actin. First, we can see the tropomyosin. And think tropo, ropo, myosin, tropo, ropo. Tropomyosin is the rope around the actin. It's a little confusing, but the tropomyosin is actually the rope around the actin filament. And when tropomyosin is just chilling there, it's covering up the binding sites so that the myosin can't attach to it. So step 5 was that the calcium binds to the troponin. That's important because when that binding happens, it actually shifts the tropomyosin out of the way to expose the binding site. So to summarize step 5, calcium attached to the troponin is on the tropomyosin and it's pulling that tropomyosin to move it to get out of the way of the active binding site. And that's important because it's going to allow for step 6 to occur. And step 6 is the formation of a cross bridge. A cross bridge involves the myosin head attaching to the actin. And all the other steps had to occur because that cross bridge can't form until that binding site is exposed. But now that that binding site is exposed, the myosin can reach up and actually attach and form that cross bridge. So step number 6 was forming the cross bridge between actin and myosin. And then finally we have step number 7, the last step of a muscle contraction, and that is the power stroke. Specifically now, the myosin head pulls the actin filament, sliding it towards the center of the muscle cell. And it's important to note that ATP, the energy currency of the body, is an important part of this step, the power stroke. ATP is actually required to position the myosin head to release them for another pull. The actual shortening itself occurs naturally, and then the ATP resets it. Overall, if all 7 of those steps go according to plan, what will happen is that cross bridge formation, the power stroke, and therefore a muscle contraction or muscle shortening. This overall happens through this fascinating sequence of events that is occurring thousands and thousands and millions of times every second all throughout your body to create the arm movements that you need to teach a YouTube video. I hope this was helpful for you. If you do happen to be studying for the NSCA CSCS exam to become a certified strength and conditioning specialist, which is the gold standard in strength conditioning, a lot of certified personal trainers, strength coaches, sports physical therapists, all sitting for this exam. That is something that we actually help you prepare for with our CSCS study course. That's available at themovementsystem.com, and if you're interested, you can check it out. All right, that's all for today. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.